السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وبارك وسلم. اللهم لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. Welcome to session two of, I think, the 6 sessions on a basic introduction on Islamic theology, or call it Tawheed or Aqidah, with the series being titled Who is Allah, uh, which allows us the opportunity to connect on a fairly reasonable and decent level with our Creator, which drives us to, or which permits us to enhance our worship and connect to Allah on a more spiritual level. Last week, we laid the foundation and framework regarding what we are going to cover, what we plan to cover during these 6 sessions. So, for those who attended last week, the framework was laid and we looked at what we'll cover. This evening, I would like to divide the class into 3 sections. Now, in the first part, which is just going to take a minute or two, I will play a video for you, and it revolves on a droplet of water. And then I'm going to take about 10 to 15 minutes to translate and read a brief passage on water. And that video is going to be transformative for you. And you will then connect to what the gentleman in the video connected to when he saw a droplet of water. And thereafter, we will better connect to the attributes of Allah Ta'ala, which we'll start with tonight. Because if we just read the attributes of Allah as is, you won't have that connection that you would have had were you to have watched the video. So I'm going to share the screen with you, and the video will be a minute or two. I'll then stop the video and I will then comment on it, reading a passage from Imam Ghazali's Ihya Ulumuddin, just on a droplet of water. And nothing is complex here. It will be very simple. And thereafter, in the last section, the last 30 minutes, we'll commence with the first part of theology, which is dealing with the attributes of Allah Ta'ala. So, with that said, and without further ado, sit back and enjoy this 2 to 3 minutes, and focus on the person, droplet of water, and think of Allah Ta'ala and the sacredness and sanctity of that droplet of water, which is the source of all life, and I'll comment on it afterwards. Okay, so you all saw there that the background of Gentleman, it's a portrayal of the last Khalifa of the Muslim Ummah, Abdul Hamid II, and the value that he found in a droplet of water. So that's the first part. I would like to share three things with you this evening. The second part uh, is just to give some body to what you witness now. And thereafter, we are going to commence with the attributes of Allah Ta'ala. And I promise you that when we start with it, the droplet of water that you saw now, and this explanation here is going to enhance your connection with the attributes of Allah Ta'ala at a very basic level. We won't go into detail with anything. Um, so without further ado, I'm going to translate for you now in simple English an 800-year-old passage from Imam Ghazali's book on how to reflect. And through that reflection, we are going to connect on a deeper level, but keep it basic. Um, and it will enhance us as human beings and as servants of Allah Ta'ala. So he says that وَأَعْجَبُ مِنْ ذَلِكَ كُلِّهِ, what from everything I've gone through in life, what has amazed me most وَأَظْهَرُ فِي كُلِّ أَظْهَرُ, from everything apparent in this world, وَكَيْفِيَةُ قَطْرَةِ الْمَاءِ, is that droplet of water and its formation. And he defines water as جسم رقيق لطيف سيال مشف متصل الأجزاء. That water is a body which is lucid, it is subtle, it is flowing, it is see-through, it attaches itself to anything as if it's part of it. لطيف التركيب, it is subtle in its composition. سريع القبول للتقطيب, it is swift in its acceptance and severance of anything it connects with. It's as if it's part of anything it connects with, and then it's separate as if it's independent. به حياة كل ما على وجه الأرض. Through that droplet of water and water itself, every single living thing on the face of the planet gets existence and life. من الحيوان, whether it's living creatures, animals, والنبات, plants. Then he says, فلو احتاج العبد إلى شربة ماء. So picture yourself, if you were desperate for a little water, let's say 48 hours there were no water, there's a drought. And you are desperate for it. And then you see someone with a glass of water outside. وَمُنِعَ مِنْهَا, and you are prevented from drinking that water. لَبَذْلَ جَمِيعَ خَزَائِنِ الْأَرْضِ وَمُلْكَ الدُّنْيَا فِي تَحْصِيلِهَا. You would give your entire wealth and everything you own in this world to get that water. Why? Because your life depends on it. لَوْ مَلَكَ ذَلِكَ, whatever you own, you would have given it away. Just to get that water in you to survive. ثم لو شربها, then after you consume that water, ومنع من إخراجها, and you can't get it out, meaning you can't urinate, you can't get that water out. لبذل جميع خزائن الأرض والملك الدنيا في إخراجها. You would give everything you own, all your worldly possessions, just to get that water out of you again. Isn't that amazing? He says, فالعجب, so it's bewildering and amazing to me, من الآدمي, regarding the human being, كيف يستعظم الدينار والدرهم, how he goes crazy over the gold coin and silver coin, over money, ونفائس الجواهر, and a fine precious metals like gold and silver and jewelry, ويغفل عن نعمة الله في شربة الماء, but he forgets the value of the droplet of water, which is the greatest grace his Lord has given him. إذا احتاج إلى شربها, when he needs to drink it, أو استفراغ عنها, or he needs to let it out, that he would give his entire worldly dominion just to attain and let go of a droplet of water. That droplet of water, he says, ناطق بلسان حالها, it is speaking with the state that it is, with the tongue of its state. مفصحة عن جلال بارئها, it is extolling the majesty of its Lord, that droplet of water. مُعْرِبَةٌ عَنْ كَمَالِ حِكْمَةٍ. It is expressing the perfect wisdom of its Lord. فِيهَا مُنَادِيَ أَرْبَابِ الْقُلُوبِ. It is talking to those whose hearts are receptive. بِنَغَمَاتِهَا, in the most melodious voice. قَائِلَةٌ لِكُلِّ ذِي لُبٍّ, reaching out to those receptive and saying to us, that droplet of water, أَمَا تَرَانِي, can you not see me? وَتَرَى صُورَتِي, can't you see my form? وَتَرْكِيبِي, and my composition? وَصِفَاتِي, and my attributes? وَمَنَافِعِي, and my usages? وَاخْتِلَافِ حَالَتِي, and the different forms I take? وَكَثْرَةِ الْفَوَائِدِ, and all the benefits I yield. أَتَظُنُّ, do you think, أَنِّي كُوِّنْتُ نَفْسِي, that I created myself? This is the droplet of water talking. Do you think I created myself? أو خلقني أحد من جنسي, or one of my fellow droplets created me? أو ما تستحي أن تنظر في كلمة مرقومة من 3 أحرف? Are you not ashamed that when you look at a word composed of 3 letters, فتقطع بأنها من صنعة آدمي عالم قادر مريد متكلم, that 3-letter word you are convinced someone with life, who can think, who has power, who has ability, who has speech, wrote that 3-letter words, that you would never believe it created itself? ثم تنظر إلى عجائب الخطوط الإلهي مرقومة على صفحات وجهي. Then you look at the wondrous, lordly scripture written on my face, on this droplet of water, بقلم إلهي, with the lordly pen of destiny. ثم ينفك قلبك عن جلال صانعه, and your heart is completely in a state of heedlessness from the creator of that droplet of water, which is me. That is the second part which I wanted to share with you this evening, and that is basically our preamble to the very point of what we are discussing tonight, which is part 1, dealing with the attributes of Allah Ta'ala. As we mentioned, Tawheed or theology has 3 parts to it, and we'll recap on that this evening and continue our way next week with prophethood for 2 sessions, and then go on to life after death. But our purpose here is, who is Allah? Who am I worshiping? We said last week that there are basically 3 sections or chapters when we study Aqidah, Tawheed, or theology. Number 1 is called Ilahiyah, Lordship. Number 2, Nubuwwah, prophethood. Number 3, life after death. And belief in these things we cannot rationally prove, like heaven, hell, the sirat we will cross, the weighing of the deeds, waking up in our qabr. Because we cannot rationally prove these things, we believe in it based on transmission from the most authoritative and mass transmitted hadiths from the Quran. We accept it in that we call faith, without logically proving it in our minds. After we laid out the 3 parts of who is Allah, or our studies in Tawheed and theology, we said that we'll start with section 1, Lordship. So while we are going through this, I want you to keep in mind the droplet of water. And whatever attributes of Allah we study today, that think this is the only being that can create that droplet of water, because no human being can create a droplet of water. And we are in desperate need of it to survive. It is the source of life of everything. So when we study Allah Ta'ala, Lordship, we study 3 things. We study Allah through His attributes. We need to know the qualities of our Creator. The qualities of Allah Ta'ala are 3 types. There are those attributes wajib for Allah, meaning necessary. Allah must have those attributes. Then there are attributes which are impossible and we call mustahil for Allah. Then there are attributes which are possible, jaiz for Allah. So we will look at try and cover all of these this evening, and just make sense of who we are worshipping and who we are. Because whatever we are going to study here, the opposite will more or less be the effect or qualities we use. So when we study the attributes of our Creator, we look at more or less 20 attributes. And these attributes we call the wajibat for Allah. They are wajib or necessary for Allah to have. Number 1, we say that Allah has beginninglessness, al-qidam. He has no beginning. The Quran simply says, Huwa al-awwal, He is the first. So we believe in a creator who has no beginning. But if we look at ourselves, we have a beginning. We were once nothing. And we don't have to look far for that. We can ask our parents. They will tell us, my child, you were once non-existent. And if you ask them, where did I come from? Every single human being will testify that you came from the relationship, a mixing of male and female, and Allah moved you into the womb of your mother. You were once a droplet of liquid, and that's the water droplet we looked at now. That was us. We were that droplet. And from that droplet, Allah made us into an embryo. And from there, He split open eyes and ears and a nose. And we lived in that womb for 9 months. And then we came out of that womb. And from there, we got to a new earth. And Allah, knowing that we don't have teeth to chew on coarse food, allowed us to be nourished from the breasts of our mother because we don't have teeth to eat coarse food. Before that, the blood within the mother's womb, that was the nourishment that we were sustained with. And then from between Imam Ghazali says filth and blood, Allah allows pure, fresh milk to exit from that breast so that we may be nourished. And later on, when our teeth, when we are in need of coarse and hard food, teeth develops. And these bones grow from the most subtle, simple, soft gums. So we are that miracle from that drop of water. Whatever attribute we study here, mirror it to yourself and tell yourself, I'm the exact opposite. And it will enhance your relationship with your Creator. You will stand in Salah differently. You will begin to feel when you do this, you are telling the world, leave me alone. Go away for a while. Let me show my Lord how empty I am with His hand. Or, oh Allah, lift up the veils from me being consumed with this world so that I may be in your presence. That is why we study Tawheed. It is not just a theory that you are going through, but it is really there to be a source of healing when Allah tests you, whether it's with your family, loss of a parent, loss of a child, loss of wealth or a car, or you fail in something. Allah Ta'ala wants you to get to know Him and who you are, realizing you are a servant and He is your master. So the first attribute that we ascribe to Allah being necessary is that beginninglessness, al-qidam, He has no beginning. And number two, endlessness, al-baqa, He has no ending. So He has no beginning, no end. The Quranic ayat says, huwa al-awwal wal-akhir. Awwal first, akhir the last. So no beginning and no ending. And number three, wahdaniyah, oneness. Here we don't say Allah is wahid, one, because one is preceded by zero and followed by two. But when we say wahdaniyah, oneness, we mean uniqueness. Allah is unique. He is unique in three aspects. Our Lord is unique in His actions. No one creates except Allah. He creates us. He creates everything around us. He creates our actions, but He grants us choice. Okay? And that choice is both on our niyyah, the locus of which is our heart. Therefore, if I lift up this glass, Allah creates the action. But He gives me the choice to either throw this water out or drink the water. And if I'm thirsty, we are taught to say Bismillah before we drink. So I say Bismillah, meaning in the name of God was that thirst created, and in the name of God did that thirst go away. So I affirm the reality of things, that everything is created by Allah, and I made the choice to use what He created, and therefore I am rewarded for my niyyah, for my choice. Okay, apologize for all the questions coming through. I'm not at liberty to answer any questions at the moment, but basically to go through the course here. You may leave the questions, you may write it out and the admin can send it to me, and when we have an opportunity, we may go through those questions. But I will browse through it when time allows. But I think what to benefit you at most now, sit back and try and understand holistically from the beginning, from the droplet of water to the video, to these attributes, and you'll gain much more. And then afterwards reflect, and if there are questions that are unclear, you're most welcome to share. So we say Allah is unique in His actions. Number two, Allah is unique in His attributes. And number three, Allah is unique in His essence, meaning that no one shares in beginninglessness and no one shares in endlessness except our Creator. The word qidam comes from the word qadim, and qadim means something very old. So when we use qadim for the world, we say like the pyramids of Egypt are qadim, ancient. But when we speak about Allah being qadim, we mean that Allah has absolutely no beginning. Okay? Allah is endless and He is unique in His actions, His essence, and His attributes. Allah, number four, is mukhalaf lil hawadith. He is completely different to creation. So whatever you see of creation, Allah is different to it. That is based on a verse in the Quran where Allah Ta'ala says, لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٍ. There is nothing equal or like Him. So we don't describe hands to Allah, a nose, eyes. Yes, we say Allah has sight, He has vision, He hears everything, but we don't create a statue and idol with, that is in need like us. Okay? We are composed of parts, everything. Whatever we can see, Allah is different. He is completely different. But we need to use these attributes in a way where we can see Allah's oneness. And that's the point of what we are doing tonight. So let's take it stage by stage and see what fruits tonight yields and what benefit we can take from it. Number five, qiyamu bi nafsihi. He is self-sustained. He depends on nothing for anything, while everything depends on Him for everything. And that is substantiated in a verse in the Quran after we say Qul huwallahu ahad. That ahad there means He is unique. When you read that verse Qul huwallahu ahad, that word ahad is actually telling us Allah is unique, and His uniqueness for ahadiyah is that He is unique in His actions, attributes, and essence. When we say Allah is self-sustaining, we are saying Allahu Samad. Qul huwallahu ahad, Allahu Samad. Samad literally means one without a stomach, meaning is not in need of food and water or nourishment. So, in other words, when we read Allahu Samad, we are saying the one who needs nothing from anybody. He depends on nothing, while we depend on Him, Allah Ta'ala, for every single thing. We get to connect with Allah As-Samad during Ramadan every year. So just listen to what occurs here. In Ramadan, we don't eat during the day for about 30 days. Now, As-Samad is the one who does not need food and water. And we try to imitate our Lord for 30 days. And we become the Samadiyah of Allah Ta'ala, those going without food and water. But every night, when the waqt of Maghrib strikes, that food and our being, our very being in the month tells us, you are not a God. You can't do without a sip of water or a slice of bread, even for one day. So we do this for 30 days as the Samadiyah of Allah, recognizing that He is a Samad who needs nothing, yet we need that sip of water. And the next day when Ramadan ends, we have Eid al-Fitr. Eid means return, because it comes every year. But Fitra, Eid al-Fitr, means natural disposition, meaning we become human once again. We remove that God complex, because for 30 days, we are basically beaten to the point that you are told you are a servant, you are not a God walking this earth. You need food and water, and I don't. So we attain that natural Fitra state, and we celebrate and eat that day because we've once again been reminded that we are human beings who need toilet and food, and we are not little gods walking on the earth. And Allah alone is qiyamu bi nafsihi, self-dependent. The sixth attribute here is wujud, existence. Allah must exist, therefore His existence is wajib. So we call Him wajib al-wujud. His existence is necessary for us to survive. Our existence does not need to be here. We don't need to be here. The world will go on. But Allah must be there for everything to exist. It's like a cable going into a wall, put the TV on. Pull the cable, there's no television. So we are only here because of Allah's support, His madad, He's permitting us to be here. If He says kun fayakun, be, and it is, and everything stops, it stops. So the word kun means be. And some of the people of insight said, we are nothing but beings between the kaf and the noon. Kun, that's all. We are just there. Okay, so we looked at 6 attributes: al-qidam, al-baqa, wahdaniyya, mukhalafa lil-hawadith, qiyamu bi-nafsi, and wujud. Allah has no beginning, no end, therefore He must always exist. He depends on no one for anything, while everyone depends on Him for everything. He is completely different to creation, and He is unique in His actions, His essence, and His attributes. Now, the next attribute we call al-ilm, knowledge. That if you look outside and you go out in the night and you look at the stars, or you look at the sun rising in the morning and the moon coming up at night, just as a lamp here, the moon has no light, absolutely no light. The sun shines on the moon, and the moon reflects on earth, that light in the night here. Is that just coincidence? Or is that pure knowledge? Is that Allah's ilm, knowledge, to design it? Because no human being has designed it. The easy way out is to say it just occurred just so. But we are going to prove that's not the case this evening. So Allah's knowledge is all-encompassing. His knowledge encompasses what was, what is, what will be, what will not be, and what would have been were it to have been. Allah Ta'ala tells us in the Quran, His knowledge encompasses every single ant and seed planted under the earth. His knowledge encompasses what we say, what we feel, and what we think. Allah's knowledge is vast. His ilm encompasses everything. So He is all knowledgeable and He has knowledge. And we will look at them just immediately what the offshoot of this is. So if we say Allah is ilm, where this is a mistake, it should have been Allah is al-alim, all knowledgeable. So if He has ilm, He's al-alim. Now some people have said you don't need to mention this because obviously if He has knowledge, He must be knowledgeable. But we'll separate the attributes and we'll count what we do tonight. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This will be our 7th attribute, al-ilm. Allah must be al-alim, all knowledgeable. Then Allah has al-irada, will, and He must be willing, al-murid. When you say Allah has will, do you believe Allah has complete will over everything? Or do human beings have will? Or does anyone have a will other than Allah? If you say that anyone else has a will that can supersede Allah's will, then that's a deficiency on Allah Ta'ala's part. That means that this entire world we are living in today, if you believe it is connected to Allah's knowledge, which has no beginning, complete knowledge of everything that's happening, He has complete will of everything, then we come to realize that this dunya is not supposed to be a paradise, nor is it a Jahannam. But we are told in Surah Tabarak, verse 2, الَّذِي خَلَقَ الْمَوْتِ, He created death, وَالْحَيَاةِ, and life. Why? What's our purpose here? لِيَبْلُوَكُمْ, that is our purpose. To make us subjects of bala, that means to be subjects who are tested every single day. And we will be tested, as Allah says, وَلَنَبْلُوَنَّكُمْ بِشَيْءٍ مِنَ الْخَوْفِ وَالْفِيرِ وَالثَّمَرَاتِ, our fruits, our income, and our family. The verse goes on, we'll test you with everything, with your wealth, your family, your health, and everything will be tested. أَيُّكُمْ أَحْسَنُ عَمَلًا, if that verse ends in Surah Tabarak, to see how you respond, and if you respond with excellence, ihsan. That means you respond knowing that Allah is in control and He wants you to get to know Him as the one in charge. We know there's people being massacred around the world, in Kenya, in Palestine. There are tyrants. The nature of this world, there is a tyrant in every single era. In the time of Musa, in the time of Abraham, in the time of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, there was Abu Lahab. There's always a tyrant. But how do we respond to this? Do we have sabr? Do we know that Allah is in control of everything and that He is testing us? to see who is worthy of paradise and not. So Allah is complete will. You see, the idea of studying Tawheed is not just theory. It is there to place at the deepest recess of your heart that my Lord is in control, I am a servant. Because when things don't go the way we want it to go, and we are not grounded in our belief system, then we panic and we don't know how to react. We go crazy and we don't know how to respond to the tests Allah places before us. But once you are more firmly grounded in knowing and confident and have that yaqeen and certainty in your Lord, then your heart is at rest. Though your limbs are in action and your tongues are speaking out against violence and your heart feels, you know at the end of the day, my Lord is in charge of everything. So the eighth attribute is al-irada. So we count again 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Al-ilm is 7. Allah is al-alim, knowledgeable, that's 8. He has irada, that's 9, will, and he is murid or willing, that is sifa, number 10. After that, we go to qudra, that Allah is power. And his power encompasses, so Allah has power over everything. He creates everything. He creates our actions. He creates us. But he has granted us choice to choose things. And that choice, as we said, is in our heart. So let's just basically say, let's take salah, for example. We perform salah. But there's no way someone will perform salah unless Allah grants that person tawfiq. Allah creates the tawfiq and places it in our heart. What is tawfiq? Tawfiq is two things. The quwwah, the physical ability to salah. Number two, that irada, that will to salah. So Allah creates in us the desire, the himmah, and the action, the ability. And so if you ever find yourself in salah or in sujood, give yourself a moment and pause for a second and thank Allah in your heart that He is all powerful, Al-Qadir, His Qudra, and He has willed through His will and power to select you and grant you the physical strength and the desire. So that's why your forehead is on the floor. You place the most honorable part of your body on the dust on the earth because Allah saw you worthy of submitting to you. And that in that sujood to connect more to His qualities of complete qudra and complete irada will, that He has chosen you and blessed you to place your forehead on the floor. Because there's no place closer in this world to Allah than in sujood. And that sujood is a gift. There are people who have the physical strength to pray, but they will never pray because Allah has stripped them of the desire to pray and the feeling and the will to do so. So your prayer itself is a gift from Al-Qadir, the one all-powerful, and Al-Murid, the one all-willing. The next attribute is Al-Hayy, life. Therefore Allah is Hayat, He is living. All these attributes, whether it is beginning, no ending, different to creation, all-powerful, all-willing, all-knowledgeable, all these hinge on the fact that Allah is life. He is Al-Hayy, and He's the ever-living. Well, we are the opposite. We always lack power, sometimes we lack will, and our life here on this dunya can come to an end. But the way we worship Allah here, the sincerity we have, the tawakkul, reliance we have, the faith we have, that may increase and can be enhanced, gives us a more wholesome life in this dunya, and that life continues in the akhirah. Because we are not placed here for nothing. Our belief is that this world is like a farm. We plant seeds here, and the fruits we will actually taste and reap in the life to come. And that depends on how we connect to these attributes in this dunya. We only get one chance in this lifetime to convince ourselves and be convinced of who our Creator is and who we are. So we said Al-Qudra, said Allah, and okay, then we say Allah is Basar, sight. Allah is Al-Basir. He tells us in the Quran, is Sami'un Basirun. He sees everything. He witnesses everything. There is nothing that goes by that He does not witness. So never in this material world we are living in today, this world of social media, where it can quickly become a life of, it depends how many people knows me and that's my connection to Allah. That is a fallacy. You can be making salah alone without anybody knowing. And that salah which you do with that room locked in your house and that sujood you make, that 2 rak'ats, could be more valuable because of the sincerity and you know Allah's watching you. The quality could be more better than you salaying for 10 years in a mosque in public, hoping people's going to see you. In fact, there's a beautiful narration. Imam Qushayri, one of the oldest scholars of spirituality, records that this man performed salah in the front saf in the mosque for 10 years. And then one day he got held up because of his fame and piety. People kept up asking him questions, and he was so late for salah, he ended up in the last row. And when he was in the last row, he realized that something's not right here. I don't even feel good here. And he disappeared for 10 years. And when he returned after 10 years, they asked him what happened. He said, no, that 10 years I was praying in the front. It was all for show. I came here inspired to pray because people knew me, praised me, loved me. And when I prayed at the back, I realized that the first time I actually prayed because I felt useless without anybody knowing me. So I qadad, I repaid 10 years of salah at home, hoping it would be accepted, and now I'm ready to come back. So Allah's basar, His sight, and al-basir means that there is no act of worship that you do that may seem insignificant, that you may have no followers, as they say, and you might be unknown, but don't believe you are unknown to Allah. Because in this time you are living, the less people know you, the more closer you can get to Allah Ta'ala. It doesn't mean that you need to be famous to be close to Allah Ta'ala, because His sight is not on those who are famous. Our Prophet lived in a time where there were no social media at all. Yet he's the most famous person in the world today because of his ikhlas and his sincerity. Same with the great Saint Imam Abdullah bin Alawi al-Haddad. He lived in a time with no social media, yet he studied across the lands everywhere. And he said before he passed away, how I wish I lived in the wilderness amongst the animals and was unknown to everybody. So that is how we connect to these attributes, one by one, and we are doing it very lightly today, to this evening, just so that we may be privy and have a little window open into the potential and possibility of studying the attributes of Allah Ta'ala. So that suffices for some of the attributes that is necessary for us as Muslims to know regarding our Creator. After that, we go to the attributes impossible for our Creator, Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. The opposite of, for example, al-ilm, we said that Allah must have knowledge. The opposite is jahl, ignorance. Ignorance means you don't know something, and that is an impossibility for our Creator. It's impossible for our Creator not to know something. When it comes to us, it's possible. I might have knowledge of theology, but I don't know how to cook or something, certain foods. I might have knowledge of fiqh, but I don't know anything about mathematics. Now, jahl is fine. If you don't know, you ask and you learn and you know. But there are levels of jahl when it comes to human beings. The second level we call jahl murakkab, compounded ignorance, where the person does not know that they don't know, but they're convinced they know. It's like this wall is grey here, and he's convinced the wall is purple, but 20 people tell him the wall is grey, and he's convinced it's purple. That, Imam Ghazali says, is a disease that is like Iblis, fire. It burns up societies because you're convinced that you know, yet you don't know. And the solution, humble yourself and go study. You'll be more liberated and you'll give people more hope than to burn people down to the pits of Jahannam based on ignorance. Ignorance is impossible for Allah Ta'ala, jahl, but it's very possible for human beings. The solution is just seek ilm, knowledge, and you remove yourself from a state of jahl into a state of knowing. But it takes humility, because if your ignorance, jahl, is if kibr, arrogance, and stubbornness is added to your jahl, your simple ignorance changes to compound ignorance, and you will never submit to anybody because you believe you know it all. The next attribute, which is impossible for Allah, to look at irada, will, and ability, it is inability or lack of will. So that's impossible for Allah Ta'ala. Allah Ta'ala says, kun, be, it means. So we ask ourselves, then why is the difficulty and danger and problems in the world? Because that's the nature of this dunya. Sometimes if you can't connect to this, you just want everything to go your way. And you can't handle the way Allah does things. Why is it just not one? Why is it just not daytime? You see, if there was just nighttime, you would never experience the beauty of sunrise. If nobody got hurt, you would never feel pity in your heart and compassion. If no one was poor, there would be no need for sadaqah. If you never got hurt, you would never understand what it means to have good health. If something was not stolen from you, you would never learn sabr. If you never needed any gifts, you would never know what shukr, thankfulness is. So this world is connected to Allah's eternal knowledge, His eternal will, and His eternal power, qudra. Therefore, it is perfect like it is, um, in the sense that it's a testing ground to see who deserves that lofty ranks in Jannah and what level who deserves to go to. Meaning, as Muslims, the world is not our end. It is a journey, and the only doorway is death. And that doorway of death takes us to the next stage of life. Like we had a birth in our mother's womb, and after that we were reborn in this world, we will die, and we will be questioned what we did here, and we'll get to that when we get to section 3, inshallah. The opposite of qudra is to be weak, and weakness is impossible for Allah to lack any power or ability. And the opposite of hayy, alive, is death, and that's impossible for Allah Ta'ala. So in this way, we study the attributes of Allah, on one hand, which is necessary wajib, on the other hand, what is impossible. As for kalam, speech, it is the Quran of Allah. Allah's word is in the Quran. It was revealed to the previous prophets in the form of the Torah, the Injil. It was revealed in different languages. And Allah Ta'ala tells us in the Quran that He never sends a prophet except bilisani qawmi, except in the tongue of the people. So if they spoke Hebrew, the prophet spoke Hebrew. If they spoke Coptic, ancient, whatever language, the prophet spoke that, and the Quran was revealed in Arabic. But all these are the eternal speech of Allah Ta'ala revealed in the language of the people it came to. Final revelation will be the Quran to the final messenger, Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, throughout thousands of years that it was revealed. To be mute is impossible for Allah Ta'ala. All these are defects. Sama, hearing, weakness, deafness is impossible for Allah Ta'ala. Basar, sight, weakness in sight, being blind, impossible for Allah, while all these attributes are possible for us as human beings. Okay, now the proofs for these attributes are both textual and rational. So textually, if we want to know if Allah has power, we read in the Quran, Allah Ta'ala says, وَهُوَ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ قَدِيرٍ, and He is upon everything able. He has power. Upon كُلِّ شَيْءٍ, every single thing. This verse indicates to us the most eloquent way that Allah lacks no power. As for Him being the creator of everything, we are told, الَّذِي خَلَقَ الْمَوْتِ. Death is a creation. Created things are temporary. A created thing has a beginning and an ending. And if you read carefully, it means death is not a permanent state. And we'll discuss that when we get to the section of death. Wal hayat, and He creates life. So He creates everything else. If Allah creates all death and all life, He's the creator of every single thing, because every single thing has a beginning, life, and an ending, the death. As for Him being knowledgeable, He says, Alimul ghaybi wa shahada. He has knowledge of the unseen and the seen. Our knowledge is limited to the seen, with mere glimpses depending on Allah's will, and insight through dreams and things, but mere glimpses, because our realm is to focus on this world, and through this world attain bliss in the akhirah. As for Him witnessing and seeing everything, I was saying, Wallahu ala kulli shay'in shaheed. So He has alim, He has knowledge, and He is witness, He sees everything. So this is how we look at the proofs textually. Now I'd like to take you through a little journey, 5 minutes or so, on rational proofs and how we can rationally prove there's a creator. So in front of you there are books. I have a book in front of me here, a huge book, about 500 pages. This book is comprised of chapters. The chapters in here are broken down into sections. The sections have paragraphs. Paragraphs have sentences. The sentences have words. The words are comprised of letters. Every single word is meaningful. If I were to ask you rationally, just as a human being, do you think this book made itself? If anyone says yes, I don't think I'm going to agree with you. Because every single book we have We know that it was created. It could not have created itself. That's not how this world works. Go to the most brilliant mind here. Will tell you, no, this book here was written and authored by an author. That author must have had attributes. Number one, hayy, he must have had life. Number two, ilm, he must have had knowledge. Number three, qudra, power to do it. Number four, irada, a will to do it. He must have had insight, be able to see, be able to hear, be able to think. So what we've done now, rationally, logically, without the Quran, is prove that every book must have had an author. Now you can make an analogy to anything you see around you in the world. Did this glass create itself? Did this pen create itself? And every item you look at around you, that item itself, that building you look at, that whatever you look at, will talk to you and tell you, I did not create myself. I was created by a person who had life, knowledge, will, and power. That's what the world tells you. That's for a simple book. So I'm going to take you a bit further um, uh, um, to this picture, to the end of our class with this picture. But before that, now, if anything in this world, if we look at it and we are convinced, no, someone created, and we look up at the moon and we ask ourselves, if this book could not have created itself, nor this glass, which are simple, I'm convinced someone created this. Then how can that moon have created itself so perfectly for the sun to shine on it and reflect on us? How can this earth be spinning and we can't feel it? Who created the gravity? Is it just all a coincidence? Whereas I can't even believe this little pen created it. So that is how we rationally prove the creator of the stars and the heavens there cannot be a human being. And that we call our creator, Allah Ta'ala. And that's why we study his attributes. Because the most simplest things before us are screaming out to us, telling us, I have a creator. When you look up at the heavens, when you look at the beauty of the grass you walk on, and the fruits that you eat, the taste, the sensations you have, the ability to think, that you came from a droplet of liquid, and now you are a Hasim being, you can argue and debate. Isn't that a miracle? My teacher once told me, a boy, us being here right now, that is the greatest. We are the greatest miracles of Allah, right here, right now. But we are blind because we look with one eye and another eye closed. So I want to end off this class with a point which I've referred to as unlocking our or your potential. Firstly, I want you to look at this picture here in front of you, and you'll notice there's a young lady looking at the birds in the sky. So I'm sure you can type. Can someone, one or two or three people, just type out and tell me, what is this girl looking for? What does she see? What is she looking at? It's a simple answer. It's right in front of you. So if one or two of you have the ability, I'll give you a few seconds. Otherwise, if you can't, not a problem. But what is she looking at? Okay, she sees the sky and birds. She's looking at the sky and birds. Okay, that's basically what I wanted you to answer. So shukran for that. Whoever answered now that she's looking at the sky and the birds. She's looking at the sky and the birds. That's it. And there's one more person who typed out here. So she is looking at the sky and at the birds. Allah Ta'ala tells us in the Quran, أَوَلَمْ يَرَوْا إِلَى الطَّيْرِ. Do not observe the bird. So Surah Tabarak, أَوَلَمْ يَرَوْا إِلَى الطَّيْرِ. Do not look at the bird. فَوْقَهُمْ, above them. Do they not observe the bird? صَافَاتٍ. صَافَاتٍ is to expand. وَيَقْبِضْ, to contract. So the image coined here in the Quran is that, do you not observe that bird flapping its wings? يَقْبِضْ. أَوَلَمْ يَرَوْا إِلَى الطَّيْرِ. طَيْر is the bird. فَوْقَهُمْ, above you. صَافَاتٍ وَيَقْبِضْ. And then Allah Ta'ala says, مَا يُمْسِكُهُنَّ. None can keep that bird suspended up there. إِلَّا الرَّحْمَنِ. Except divine rahmah, mercy. Now, if you go outside one day and you live in Cape Town and you look outside at the birds, just at the birds, and you look with your eyes, you're going to see a bird. But Allah is telling you, look again. Nothing can keep that bird up except divine rahmah. And if you look with your heart, you're going to see rahmah. You're not going to see the bird anymore. You're going to see you're going to see Allah's rahmah. That bird is a sign of Allah's tawheed, of His rahmah, because we can't create that bird in place of it. So one person might be seeing a bird, the other one is seeing Allah's tawheed, the rahmah. You can come to Cape Town and look at Table Mountain for your whole life, and your eyes and your head just sees rock. But if your potential is unlocked and you tap into that potential, you might see with the eye of your heart Allah's majesty. That mountain might be screaming to you, this is the Jalal, majesty of my Lord. No human being created this mountain. But if your eye of your heart is locked, then you just see with your worldly eyes a piece of rock. And one day, Allah Ta'ala might open that heart, that vision of your heart, and you might look at the mountain, you always see Allah's majesty afterwards. And one day it might be enhanced that when you see that mountain simultaneously, you look with the eye in your head at the rock, and the eye of the heart, you see His majesty. And one day, if Allah grants you, the eye of your heart might open more. When you look at that mountain, you first see Allah's majesty and then see the rock with your eye. And if Allah grants you deep insight, that eye in your head might disappear into the eye of your heart. And when you look at that mountain, all you say is Allahu Akbar. That is Allah's Jalal. And if you go to the beach, in the water, you might see water with the eye in your head, but you have the potential to see Allah's Jamal, His beauty with the eye of your heart. Allah Ta'ala opens the Quran with what? Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Not, I'm going to throw you into a fire of hell. He says, I am merciful, I am compassionate, and he repeats that 113 times before 113 chapters. And if someone is writing you letters and starting every single section with mercy and compassion, it's a message to you that you might be blind to, and you are missing out on what the author is telling you. Focus on my rahmah. Stop focusing on being punished. Focus on mercy. Allah Ta'ala says, wa rahmati, my mercy, wasiyat kulla shay. It touches everything, but you need to look for that vision of your heart. Allah Ta'ala says, kataba. And kataba here means farada, wajib. Nothing is obligatory on Allah except one thing. Kataba rabbukum ala nafsihi rahmah. He has made rahmah, fard, wajib on himself. And with that said, we will end session number 2, and we are ready, inshaAllah ta'ala, next week to commence with section number 2, which is prophethood. And that is where we get to the realm of the possibilities of Allah sending prophets. And we will spend 2 weeks going through the list of prophets mentioned in the Quran and select a few and go into the history and background and see how we can connect to their lives and what attributes are necessary for them, like we have studied what is necessary for Allah Ta'ala. So I make dua and I pray that you benefited from this session, that it was enlightening, that there are some practical benefit, and that it unlocks some potential that you may have hidden within your hearts. And we ask Allah Ta'ala to accept what we read tonight, and we read Surah Fatiha together and ask Allah to remove our worries, stress, to bless our families, to grant us patience, to protect our children, to grant us hikmah and wisdom, to open the doors of His rahmah and His rizq for all of us, to heal us mentally, emotionally, for those going through difficulties, to make your work easy for you, to make it easy on your studies, and to grant us respect to our parents and our families, and grant us the sabr we need to be sincere servants of Allah in this time we are living in. بسر أسرار الفاتحة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وصحبه وبارك وسلم. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.